Alrighty, we've got another holiday project for you. This one's going to be a Christmas wreath, a little bit more complex than the others. So this, I would say, is more of an advanced intermediate level. If you're a beginner, check out some of the others. They might be a little bit simpler. Okay, let's get into it. Now for this project, this will be for the background. Kind of looks like snowflakes a little bit. It's just a seated glass. Okay, so for the first step, of course, we are cutting glass. And you can see that we can see that pattern straight through that glass. So for me, I don't see the need to be cutting up the pattern and tracing the pieces. And here is the green piece. You can see right through that as well. These two are water glasses and this one is a seated glass. And you can see that texture is very directional. And we are going to be using that to our advantage on this piece. Here's the next one. This one's a little bit more subtle. And this one's pretty obvious. All of those bubbles. And for the seated glass, it's going to be over here in the background, and I want for this to be vertical. So I want for all my pieces to be going just like I marked them on the pattern. So as always, we've got our glass cutter, and for this piece, this is tons of curved cuts, almost no straight edges on this pattern, so I'm not really going to be needing a straight edge like this. So we're going to be orienting our glass cutter directly on the center of that black line. And you want to hear that nice, consistent cutting sound. And I normally just tap the break through. See that? This way I don't have to pick up another tool. And so we've got our first cut here. And normally I actually like to do all the scores before I start to break the glass, so I don't have to re-put the glass back on and try to align it back to the lines, but it's not the end of the world if you have to do that. So we're going to continue on doing all these curved cuts, and the way to get a nice curve in your glass is to keep that elbow moving, and that way you won't have any kind of harsh or jagged edges. It'll all be pretty much nicely curved. Now for smaller pieces that I can't quite pop off with the tapping, I'll use the grosers. Flat end on top, curved end on the bottom. Securely grip the glass, and just be careful not to cut yourself. You might need some gloves for this if you're maybe a little less experienced. And let's see how this looks. I think that we might have a little piece to break off right here. There we go. Glass off. You do not want this glass in your hands. One of my favorite tools right here. Now this has so many pieces that I am going to be marking the pattern as I cut the pieces, because I do not want to keep cutting these pieces over and over. So I'm going to mark that with a check mark. We'll move on to the next piece. And I tried to figure out some way to get this to be a really good yield. Couldn't quite get it, so that's okay. We're going to go ahead and cut the biggest piece next. And you could get a little bit of a better yield if you're willing to have your direction, oriented in a different way. I just really want mine to be vertical. So we're going to go ahead and start this piece off. Get a nice even score. Try to get right on that line as much as possible. And right here we have a bunch of little curves that we're going to have to cut out. That's okay. And if you really want to, probably what you'll do is cut this piece out. You might be able to keep this piece for another project. It's still a pretty decent size. So we'll get this out of the way. And we'll get this oriented back on our pattern. You see we've got the first two edges cut. And you're going to want to probably take your time on this piece. This is a pretty important piece. So you want that to be really well done. It's just interacting with so many adjacent pieces that there we go. Now we got the grosers out. So many pieces to break. There we go. Just take one off one by one. And then we'll see how the fit is. Hopefully it looks good. Okay, let's take a look at it. Get this swept off. You do not want that in your hands. Something like this probably could go down a little bit. Something like this could go down just a little bit. A lot of these could go down just a little bit. Just a little tiny bit. And that'll make everything fit together a little better. This looks like a pretty good spot. Pretty good yield from that spot. So what we'll do is we'll cut this piece out so we can save the rest of this piece for another project. And this is another pretty important piece. It butts up to so many pieces. You want to really try to get that line, get that cut line right on the black line. Carefully try to break these out on the score lines as much as we can. Try not to hurt yourself. There we go. Sometimes they'll come off in bigger pieces like that. And sometimes with something like this, where it's got a kind of thin out area right there, not very much meat, I like to tap it through. Or else you risk breaking it right on that. There we go. Just like that. You can see that score starting to work through the glass. See, it's starting to break that point right there. We'll see if this piece is salvageable. It might still be. If not, we'll just recut it. Now, when you get to a situation like this where there's not very much meat on either side of the score, you're going to want to use two pairs of pliers. So one to hold it, almost to act like it's your fingers, and then one to go ahead and break the glass off. It should look something like that. Now I definitely broke the tip off of that one. Let's see. Yep. Well, anyway, I had broken that up in multiple places, so that one had to be recut no matter what. Just like that. And now we're going to try to tap all these breaks through. Before I was just popping them off with the grosiers, and sometimes that works out, but sometimes you really need to tap all those scores through. There we go. I'll just start popping off. And we'll go back with the grosiers once we have most of the pieces off and see what we need to clean up still. Okay, we got a bunch of pieces off right there. Hopefully we didn't break a corner. No, we didn't. We're okay still. Still in the clear. Okay, now this is where it broke off last time. So let's see if we can just tap it through. Slowly but surely. Take your time. I think that'll be okay. Yeah, the tiny bit of that tip broke off. But it's not too bad. That'll definitely be okay. Okay, now for this, I think I'm going to go ahead and use the grosiers. And there's enough meat I can hold it with my finger. I don't need the other pliers. And hopefully that will work out. Let's see. Kind of a complicated cut there. We're going to sweep this pattern off. And let's see how it looks. 3 pieces done. We're done with the clear CD glass. Now we're going to go ahead and do these red bows, I think. Now this, I want it to be like this, and then up here, I want it to look like this, the direction of the texture. And this I'm going to go straight up with. I want to go ahead and get started with the biggest pieces. That's the sound we want to hear. And different glosses make different sounds. Now to break this, I've got a score right here, and I've got a score right here. And this one I want to break off first so I have more meat to hold. And we're going to do that with the grosiers. because it's going to be kind of difficult for me to get my hand on that. Just pop that right off like that. We're going to have to pop it off again down here, just a little bit more. And then we're going to need to go ahead and pop this off right here. And that I'm going to go ahead and get with my grocers too. Got it. Okay. So this one, let's see how well it holds. Looks good. Maybe a little bit of grinding, but not too bad. I'm just going to knock it down a little bit right here, a little bit right here. And that will do. And this is a little tip, since we scored it here last, we're going to want to start our next score on that so we don't break out the glass this way. So we're going to do a nice even score again, just like that. We're going to start off with this piece with the least amount of material to grab onto, just like that. We'll probably have to clean this up on the grinder. Let's see what we can do. Get as much as you can off here. That'll make it a little bit easier when it comes time to grind. Just get all that off. And then we'll have a little bit of smoothing out on the grinder. For this, I'm going to go ahead and tap it through. I'm not sure if you've ever noticed, but this red glass is always more expensive, and I think it's because it's actually got some gold in it. The raw material, some of the raw material used is gold. And if you kind of look at an angle, let's see if you can sort of see a little bit of that goldish hue. And that's why it's normally a little bit more expensive than the others. Okay. So let's check the fit there, and we'll mark any grinder areas we need to take care of. Which it looks like mostly just the pretty obvious spots where it's really rough. Pop off just a little bit of this thing. There we go. Okay, yeah, with a little bit of grinding, that one will be perfect. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 of these to go. Okay, let's check this right here. This is about, it's about 2 inches. We'll encompass that one. I'm going to just do 2 1/8 of an inch. Is that what I want? This way I'm not cutting up the whole little piece of glass here. So you see that, how it barely fits in there? That's what you want. That's how you're going to get the best deal out of your glass. It also kind of makes it a little bit challenging when you have these tiny little pieces to pop off with your grocers, but get the hang of it. Uh-oh. Okay, we gotta realign this thing. Okay, we got it. Just gotta really get your face up to it, make sure. Hopefully we got it. We'll go back and give this one a nice cut right here. There we go. take this all to the grinder. Okay, we are making pretty good progress here. So now we need to go ahead and clean all these up, and we can start copper foiling them. We are now at the point where we've got all of our pieces cleaned up, and now it is time to start copper foiling them. Now, if you haven't seen this before, this is the little copper foiling setup I like to use. And it's pretty much just the creator's foiler, and I've got the foil here, and it's really simple. You just push the glass through that, keep rolling it around, and it adheres that foil really easily. So we'll do one from this angle. We can do this big piece. And now that everything is all cleaned up, we want to avoid touching the edges as much as possible. So we're just going to push that glass into the groove, rolling it through, and it with a little bit of pressure, it's starting to adhere, and it self-centers the glass on the foil with this groove. So this is just my preferred method. It really just is so fast and gets great results. And of course, like everything, it's got a little bit of a learning curve. And one of those things that I have learned is that you really need to fold down the foil from the very beginning, because you're going to need to refeed that into the groove in order to overlap the foil a little tiny bit. So we got that piece done. Let's grab our scissors, pull this out a little bit, cut it down, and all we need to do is fold the edges. So what I like to do is fold it down, fold it over, zip it up, fold it over, zip it up, just like this, and then fold it over, just like that. That's my preferred method to do that. You'll see on these types of curves, I like to heat it up with my thumb with a little bit of friction, and that just seems to help the copper foil stretch a little bit better. If you don't, it can rip. Now this is definitely way too shallow. We'll definitely have to go over that spot. And it's no big deal. Much better. Probably will have to remove just a little bit of that material. Now for this side, we want to just even this out right here. Much better. Got this little circle. And unfortunately, I have just a piece. Oh man. This thing is super small. There we go. Okay, we have got the pieces all copper foiled, and now we need to do the burnishing process. So we're going to go through every individual piece. Okay, so what is required for the burnishing is you need a fid or some sort of burnishing tool. This is my preferred tool. And what we're going to do is take every individual piece, and you're going to start on the edge just like this. And you are essentially trying to adhere the foil to every crevice of the glass, and this is going to give us the best results. Okay, so we're going to do that for every piece. Okay, now we are going to go ahead and go back with the razor blade And I would really recommend using an X-Acto blade, but I can't find mine right now. What we're going to do is make this be much more even. So we're going to take the blade, pretty nice, consistent, even pressure, and just doing a light score through that copper foil along the path that we want to be the visible area. So now let's peel this up. There we go. This spot right here is where the foil was terminated. So you don't want to burnish it this way. It's going to knock it up like this. See that? You want to burnish it with the foil that's on top so that it presses more into it. It doesn't get knocked off. So that's what that looks like. And now that we have the edge done, we're going to go ahead and do the face. And this is a really good example of how it's very crinkled. So this will all show in your solder, and it's not adhered at all to the face of the gloss. So what we're gonna do, burnish the face like normal, and then we're gonna see what it looks like afterwards. And definitely burnish this one straight to the middle. Sometimes you can get away with doing a little bit, not quite a straight towards the middle, maybe more in a sideways, but not this one. You will knock it all off completely. Now let's get a closer look. It still looks to be a little bit textured, but nothing like it was before. So right here is a situation where we can see that the foil actually did rip when we did the convex curve there. So now we need to fix that by reapplying it, and then we'll trim it down so it'll match that view line that we want. Tape it this way, because we know this will not rip like this. So we'll burnish the side and then the face, flip it over, re-burnish the edge, and then down the face again towards the middle. And now we'll just get our blade and just cut that perfect view line that we want. Alright, let's get our iron heated up. We've got our little pattern right here, and we're going to start by tack soldering this together. Now what does that mean? It means we're going to take our solder and we are going to solder just the joints where every single piece of glass meets up. Now I do want to show you a quick tip on how I like to keep my solder accessible but still out of my way so that it's easy to use but not in my way all the time. So this is the way I like to do it. You see, we've got the roll of solder. It's pushed down onto 2 screws. So you just put 2 screws into the table, push your roll of solder in through it like this, and now it'll just unravel as you keep using it. You won't have to keep unraveling it, you just keep pulling it and it keeps unraveling. Flux. And I like to just put a little bit of flux into the cap and then get this bottle way away from me so I don't spill it everywhere. Take our little flux brush, you don't need very much, especially for the tacking. So we'll just put a little bit of flux there. Grab our iron. It is nice and hot by now. So I like to do, just grab some solder with the iron. See that? And now it doesn't take very much to just tack everything together. So what I like to do is I just like to try to keep every piece in the right spot as we go along. And it's just a quick tack. We're just tacking stuff together. Now that we've got a few in, I think I will go ahead and put one nail right here. Got a little bit of flux, grab a little bit of solder. There we go. Now you see how the whole thing moved just a little bit. There we go, now it is all tacked together.
Now everything is tacked up. Here we go. Okay, let's get our wire out because I don't want to forget, and we might as well do it in this step. I cut off a piece, and we are going to put this. We're going to make a loop like this, and then we're going to twist it up. And then when that's done, we can cut it down to size. So, cut that off and just smash it down just a little bit. Let's see what we can do here. There we go, we got it. Now this thing is perfectly submerged in there. So let me get that soldered up while it's in there before I knock it out by mistake. And that's what you want to see, a nice round bead. You don't even know it's in there. Okay, now we want to do that to the other side. So now that we've got everything into the position that we want it, we're going to go ahead and solder it all up. And really, I'm going to go ahead and flex the whole thing because it's time to just solder the whole thing. Everything is holding together now. Now when you're soldering, you want to try to get nice, consistent, even runs. You want them to have a nice rounded over look. You don't want it to be really bumpy and jaggedy. You want it to have a nice uniform look. So now we're just going to go ahead and tin the perimeter. Be careful not to touch it. It's very hot. This side, we've got everything all soldered on the other side, so there's no tacking required. We're just going to pretty much bathe this thing in flux, and then we're going to get started once again. What we're going to do is we're going to do the part that is up because gravity will push that solder to the ground. So we want to do whatever we can from where it is positioned. Put a nice edge bead all the way around this thing. And we can hopefully clean up at least a little bit anywhere there's a bunch of big old bunches of solder. And we'd want to use this time to make sure to bridge the gap between any two pieces. We don't want it to have like a sharp crevice in there. We want it to pretty much be filled in with solder. That's going to be the neatest and the strongest way to proceed. So we'll just keep rotating this thing. Right here is a pretty big crevice. We're going to want to pretty much fill that thing up. Let's flex it up first. That always helps. Might as well give this little panel a flex bath at this point. Let's turn it a little bit more. Oh, got myself. Pretty hot, don't forget. Okay, here we go. There you go, see that? You want to kind of fill it in, kind of like that. And then when we lay it flat, we can take care of all those, bubbles and pretty much overflows. But it's important that we fill it up. And even while it's still a little bit hot but still cooling, you can fill it just a little bit more. And then the area that's deepest in there will dry up, cool down, and we'll be able to clean up the outside without heating up and melting the inside. I'm going to grab my wire brush and see if any of this stuff pops up easily. Because this solder, a lot of times when it's superficial like this, it's really just not actually sticking to anything. For some reason, maybe it's got a little bit of suction between it and the glass, something like that. And it just needs to be kind of knocked off. I think that'll save us some work. Now, let's see, I think I'm going to just hit a few more areas. Not everything that I just fluxed, but I just want to see what we can do here. Get this thing all cleaned up.
Alright, now you're really starting to see all those textures flaring out in different directions. Really gives it that effect that we were looking for. Alright, we got it. If you look through it, you can see all the snowflakes falling right through that wreath. Very nice. Okay, I hope you enjoyed that Christmas wreath video. And if you did, I think you're going to enjoy these other videos in our holiday playlist. So click right over here, and thank you so much for watching.